We pick back up on our series called Game On, using true story Hollywood films about fall sports, particularly some of those great fall high school sports to discover faith issues. And this week we have a story about Caroline Found, as told in the movie that came out just this spring called The Miracle Season. And now, I understand most of us probably didn't see this film when it came out, because it did just come out this year in April. And I think its engagement in the Wichita area was all of a week. So you didn't get much of an opportunity to see it, but hopefully we'll change all that today. And we are going to offer a screening of the film at 2:30 this afternoon here in the Worship Center. So anyone that would like to see the movie, we invite you to come back at 2:30. But to get a sense of it, watch this short trailer of the film.
How many schools do you think have one of these? Dozens. How many teams have earned 2 back-to-back? Almost none.
It's a true story.
A lot of people are going to see this movie and think that a lot of it was dramatized for the sake of making a movie, and none of it is.
Caroline, you're the captain now. Lead this team.
Caroline knew how to live life without any regrets. Yeah! But she was also a massive goofball and made every single day on the court so much fun. This is our year, Cal.
Once she passes, Caroline still has this profound impact.
People are looking to me to keep the team going. She brought out your inner strength. You can't bring out something that isn't already there.
If we could win one game, shouldn't we try? For Caroline.
If we run the board, we got a shot at state.
How many is the board?
15 games.
There's a lot of pressure there, for sure. But it's such a bonding experience.
We are this close to doing something no one thought we could do.
Time to take them down.
To get the I'm really excited that there's finally going to be a sports film for women. It's really positive and uplifting.
Whatever happens out there today, it isn't personal.
Thanks for letting me know. It'll make our win even sweeter.
It's going to be really great for girls to see this film.
You strong women, win this for yourselves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, win!
The Miracle Season tells the true story of Iowa City's West High School girls volleyball team, the Ladies of Troy, the Women of Troy. And Caroline Found is the star setter. Everyone calls her Line. She's the team captain and is killed early in the film in a moped accident. Actually, she was killed just before their season began, a season in which the team planned to defend its state championship. Caroline, was a fearless and magnetic leader. She sort of was the glue that held the team together. Spirited and kooky and loved life. And after her death, the team's tough-loving coach, played in the film by Helen Hunt, her name is Kathy Bresnahan. All the team calls her Brez. Coach Brez decides to go on with the season and pursue that second state title. The real-life Brez said Line made everyone feel like they were needed and loved. She made you feel like you were the most important person in the world when you were in the room with her. There was no chance, Brez said, of forfeiting the season. That would have been disrespectful to Caroline, even to consider the notion of not having a season. However, the grief-stricken team didn't feel like playing or even practicing, for that matter. And to complicate things even more, no one on the team was ready to replace the star setter in her position. You know, if you know much about volleyball, the setter is the one around whom the team revolves. The setter is the one that sets the ball to the power hitters who make the kills and scores. But everything, every play on the court really centers upon the setter. Who was going to replace Line in that position? Finally, It is Line's best friend, Kelly Fleeler, who is asked to step up into that role. A role that Kelly feels so ill prepared for, inadequate, not good enough. I'm reminded as Kelly tells the coach and tells the team that she's certainly not the one to step into Line's position. I'm reminded of Moses, another reluctant one who felt inadequate and underprepared for the task that God was asking him, who felt ill-equipped. I'm going to read from the book of Exodus, beginning at the 4th chapter, verse 10. Moses said to the Lord, "Oh, my Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past, nor even now that you have spoken to your servant. But I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." And then the Lord said to him, "Who gives speech to mortals? Who makes them mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will be with your mouth and teach you what you are to speak." But Moses said, "Oh, my Lord, please send someone else." Oh my God, anybody else? Those words ever kind of ring familiar for you? Oh Lord, not me. Please, there's got to be someone better. I'm not enough. Moses meets God in a burning bush. You heard Lori sharing with the children about that moment. And Yahweh has a mission for Moses as he's out in the wilderness taking care of his father-in-law's herd. It is one job and one job only, to go to Pharaoh and tell Pharaoh to let God's people go, the enslaved Hebrew people that the Egyptians were using to build all of their infrastructure. Go, let my people go. And Moses makes all kinds of excuses why he isn't the right person for the job, why he shouldn't be the one that God might choose. The first excuse that he makes early on in the 3rd chapter of Exodus, it says, "Who am I? Who am I to do this? I am not good enough." And God responds. God responds to Moses' self-belittlement by saying, "I will be with you. I will go with you all the way." So, Moses comes up with a second excuse. That he won't know what to do. He won't know what to say. He won't know the words to tell Pharaoh. He's concerned that he would fail in his mission. God's very patient. God's very patient with Moses. Tells Moses exactly what it is he is to say to Pharaoh. "Let my people go." And then God tells Moses to say these words in the name of the great I am, in the name of God Almighty. And Moses offers another excuse. The next excuse Moses says is that nobody will take me seriously. In the beginning of the 4th chapter of Exodus, Moses says, "They won't believe me. What if they won't obey when I say these words to Pharaoh? What if they say, 'The Lord did not appear to you'?" Moses still is whining to God about all of these what ifs that concern him. And I don't know about you, but I do that all the time. When someone asks me or needs me to do something that I'm uncomfortable doing, the what ifs start just reeling through my mind, and sometimes I'll even begin to spew out some of the best what ifs, trying to get out of whatever it is that someone is wanting me to do. Moses thinks he can do that with God, believes that he can get out of his obligation by saying, "Well, what if they don't believe me? What if they say, 'The Lord did not appear to me'?" But God responds, Again, God responds, this time with 3 signs that Moses will be able to use to convince any suspicious people in Egypt that he is God's own envoy. And yet, Moses still continued to doubt. Still not satisfied, Moses comes up with yet another objection. Moses says to God simply, he's not qualified. He says to the Lord, please, Lord, I've never been able to talk well. I've never been eloquent. I'm slow and hesitant in speech. Many have argued that Moses suffered from a stammer, from a stutter. And Yahweh says to him, who do you think made your mouth? Who do you think makes human mouths? Who makes a person mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord Yahweh? Now go. You kind of get a sense that God's beginning to get a little bit testy. Go, he says. You speak, I'll tell you what to say. And it's still not enough. 5 times Moses comes up with objections. 5 times Moses comes up with excuses why he's not the one. Moses finally just blurts out, just please, Lord, send somebody else. I'm the wrong guy. And this time God, a little bit angry, brings Moses' brother into the calling and says that Aaron, Moses' brother, will be the mouthpiece for the operation. And with that, finally, Moses relents and goes to do what God has asked of him. Now, there's something I notice in this story in the book of Exodus. This one single conversation between God and Moses takes up a lot of space in Scripture. One conversation takes up nearly 2 entire chapters of the book of Exodus. It's dedicated to this one conversation between God and Moses, and I think that's significant. If you think about all the things in the book of Exodus that had to be left out, all of the other things that probably about the life of the Hebrews, their life in enslavement, and so the things that had to be left out so that 2 full chapters could be devoted to this one conversation, just so that we could read it and understand what is going on in the dynamic between God and Moses. And I wonder if all of that space is allocated to this one conversation because God knows that we all have a tendency to do pretty much the same thing. That this conversation encapsulates something about the human condition. That we all have a tendency to look at ourselves and look at ourselves critically. And see only our shortcomings. Only our faults. Only our failures. The places inside of us that are broken. I wonder if this much time is given to this conversation because God knows that all humans have a tendency to really dwell and focus on our weaknesses. Back to the film. Line's best friend, Caroline Fountain's best friend, is Kelly Fleeler. And she has this tendency. Real early on in the film, we get to eavesdrop on a conversation between Line and her friend Kelly. And Kelly at that point is even unsure whether she's even going to be able to make the team this year. After all, there is a talented freshman that is coming up that plays the same position that Kelly does. And Line tries to refocus her friend's obsession with her deficits and all of her weaknesses and refocus her attention on her strengths. And Line tells her, after all, she's been working hard. She's been working hard all summer, and at practice, she's been nailing some really terrific plays. But it's after Line's death when Coach Brez is looking for that new setter, a new team captain. And Kelly begins to just be overwhelmed by those same feelings that Moses was overwhelmed with thousands of years earlier. Those feelings of I am not enough. For what is being asked of me, I'm simply not enough. That's what Moses is saying to God. God, this is a huge thing. For what you need from me, I am not enough. Kelly pretty much says the same thing to a coach. For what is needed at that position, I am not enough. God sees something in Moses, despite all of his objections. There's no doubt in God's mind. Moses is the right leader at the right moment in time for what God needs. And God knows something else, that Moses will not be alone. If Moses is not enough, that's okay, because God is enough. Just as Coach Brez believes that Kelly is the right leader for the right moment in time for her team. Now, as the team begins to practice again, their heart is not in it. They lose their first game. They're grief-stricken. But then Coach Brez tells them to dedicate every point, dedicate every game, dedicate every match to line, to play for line. Do it for line becomes their rallying cry. And yet, while they begin to have some success, doing it for line results in very little joy in their competition. Because as they do it for line, they are reminded over and over again of their loss, of their brokenness, of their grief. Kelly finally comes with her complaints to Line's father, Ernie Found. Now, Ernie Found is a local surgeon who in real life not only lost his daughter in that moped accident, but 2 weeks after that also loses his wife to pancreatic cancer. Can you imagine the grief he is feeling? And yet, despite this unimaginable grief, he remains connected to Line's high school volleyball team, and he begins to follow them as they are competing again. And this forges a relationship between Line's friend, Kelly, and Line's father, Ernie. And Kelly tells Ernie that though she has tried and tried, she simply cannot play like Line did. And Ernie helps Kelly understand that it isn't her job to play like Line. Moreover, it's not even the team's job to play for Line. What his daughter would have wanted, he says, is for the girls to live like Line. And there's a difference there. Not to play like Line, not to play for Line, but to live like Line, to embody her spirit. In an interview after Caroline's death, the real Ernie Found tearfully recalled the way that his daughter inspired everyone around her. He said all she ever wanted to do was to put a smile on someone else's face. And live like Line, live like Line. These 3 words began to be printed on t-shirts and bracelets, and they're put up on banners, and the school is painted with the slogan, live like Line, and the team begins to have hope and motivation beyond just grieving Caroline's death. To live like Line is to live with joy and the exuberance that Line exhibited. And in doing that, the girls learn how to play their own game. They learn how to play for themselves and to live like Line. They become Line's legacy not by memorializing her, but by embodying her spirit. And by doing that, they overcome all these enormous odds and win their 2nd straight state title. The story does not end when the credits roll, however. In fact, To Live Like Line has continued to inspire young women at Iowa City's West High School, continues to inspire people even today. I want you to watch this short news article from 2016. This is 5 years after Caroline Found's death.
It's over now. Her class is gone. They've all gone to the winds.
Yeah.
Will people remember Caroline Found?
I think so. It's kind of like paying it forward. I think a lot of us want to embody her best traits. She was a pretty amazing kid.
The fall brings a new season to the West High Gym. New players, new opponents, but the Trojans are still wearing the same shirt.
When you're having a hard time and you just like look down and see the shirt, it gives you like some motivation to just keep going and keep working hard.
Because the name on the back of their shirt is someone most of these girls have never met and never will.
I think like we've gotten to the point where like underclassmen don't really know the story of her that well, so we feel the responsibility to pass it on.
A story that began in the same gym and continues to live on.
Caroline Found, 5 years later, continues to inspire players at West High School, continues to inspire people even today, those who learn about her through this new film. To live like Line is to live joyfully, fully, in every moment, despite the odds, despite the heartbreak, despite the difficulties, to step up and lead, even as storm clouds gather. Even when, I might say especially when, one feels inadequate, ill-prepared, or even broken. I think there's a lesson here for all of us, both in this film and in the story of Moses, the story of Kelly Freeler and the West High School volleyball team in the aftermath of Line's death. In a moment, we'll stand and sing our final song, and as we sing, I invite you to think about where you're being called to step forward, where you're being called to lead, where you're being nudged to respond to God's call, those very intersections and places where you feel like perhaps I'm not enough. I'm not the right one. Oh dear God, send somebody else. Send anybody else. Think about those very things and remember that God is with you as God calls you forward. Next week, we're finally going to get to some football. The movie that I've chosen, I know many of you have seen, and you know it, it's a really great film, Rudy and Notre Dame. You can't go wrong with that. So next week, Game On will continue, and we'll take a look at some lessons in the film Rudy. Don't forget, 2:30 this afternoon, if you want to see The Miracle Season, it's a terrific film. I invite you to come back and we'll meet together here in the Worship Center at 2:30. Let's stand together and sing our final song.